Here we go. Let's get a quick spin. Let's get a spin. Let's get a spin. Let's go. Let's go.
All right, you got to get it in.
Oh, Minnesota Vikings. This is easy. Mike Zimmer wants a guy that's polished. How about Jalen Phillips from Miami? This is a polished technician with outstanding athleticism. You put him opposite Danielle Hunter. Look out.
You know, when I think of polished technician with outstanding athleticism, I think of Judd Zulgad. That's right.
Who doesn't, as I turn my mic on? When you think of professional broadcasters who know where the on and off switch is for their mic, you think of Judd Zulgad.
Oh, man.
The seamless transition into the world of podcasting.
We know you at least have oily hips, which is why we love you on the show.
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. All right. Purple Daily, presented by TCL. Enjoy more of what you love with TCL. We've got a special guest on today's show, Tyler Forness from Climbing the Pocket, as the four of us, including our executive producer, Declan Goff, are going to jump into another mock draft simulation, a 4-round mock draft simulation with trades where we are the Vikings front office, thanks to our friends at thedraftnetwork.com. So we'll introduce Tyler in a second. But Declan, why don't you tell the audience, if this draft doesn't go well for you in the Vikings front office, you're going to have a lot more time to golf, I'm guessing, huh?
Yeah, I would highly recommend, and Rick Spielman might want to honestly pick this up too if this doesn't go according to plan. He might want to check out the PGA Tour Superstore in Minnetonka and hit up my guy Ian. He was my swing specialist. I hit a bunch of club heads and shafts. I was on the monitor.
Ian might want to distance himself from that if it doesn't go well for you, though.
That's true. He stands back from a safe distance at least, but I would like to see the apex and the spin rates of Spielman's balls versus maybe a Barrymore or any type of offensive lineman the Vikings could be targeting here. You should go to the PGA Tour Superstore. It's the van fitting experience at the PGA Tour Superstore in Minnetonka.
Right on, boys.
I want a mock!
Tyler Forness, what's going on with you, man? Are you pumped a week away from the NFL draft?
Oh, I am a combination of pumped, exhausted, and ready for it to be done. The whole process is incredibly fun, exhilarating, but it's a grind, and we're getting so close to the end, and then you just kind of get to see all your work come together, and players get homes, and and then you get to start for next year.
So you do a ton of studying, and you watch film on players well beyond the first round. You have all 7 rounds covered. We like to dabble in the draftnetwork.com and do our own simulations. We've done a handful on this show. Be honest, how many full or partial mock draft simulations have you done for the 2021 draft?
I did a lot more last year. This year, I've mainly just been focusing on the Vikings. On our YouTube channel for Climbing the Pocket, we do a Mock Draft Monday show, which you were a part of, Phil. And we've done about 15 of those. I've only written one full first-round mock draft, and I've done a bunch of just general simulations to try and get a feel for where guys can go. And this simulator is just a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. My biggest question before we start here, and just so we can lay this out for the audience, we've got the visual up on our YouTube page here, Purple Daily YouTube. Click subscribe. Thank you. Help spread the word about this show, Daily Vikings Entertainment. But I think what we'll do is we'll start the draft. We're going to get trade offers coming in, and so we can then pause this draft as we go along and have discussions about how it's playing out. Like, Judd, we've had a couple instances in these simulations where either Trey Lance or Justin Fields has fallen to 14. There was one where Kyle Pitts fell to 14, and you're left to make a decision.
And we didn't take him.
Yeah.
Because we were insisting on trading back, darn it.
I nearly quit the show.
Our goal was to trade back.
We wanted to trade back just to see what would happen. It was great.
So as you sit here, Tyler, before we click start on this and actually go through it, if you're the Vikings at 14, it's hard to pinpoint a player because there's so many things that could happen. But what is your general strategy going in with the 14th pick, and what are the different things that you're preparing for?
Probably the biggest thing I'm looking for is at 14, am I going to get an impact player? And kind of with where the Vikings are right now, Rick Spielman, I believe, is going to draft an impact player for now rather than a projection. And I think the guy you would end up picking at 14, assuming we stay there, which, let's be honest, we probably won't, I think he's going to take a guy who maybe has a ceiling of 9 instead of a guy who has a ceiling of 10, because that impact player is something that they need now more than in past years.
So let's do this, boys. Let's fire this up here. I'm going to click, and Declan, you go ahead and, yeah, there we go. Bring it to life with some football music. We're going to click Start the Draft, and I'll hover over the pause button here. So, obviously, Trevor Lawrence going number 1 to Jacksonville. Whoa, okay.
What's this thing doing?
Justin Fields just went number 2 to the Jets.
The computer's gone rogue. What's happened to the computer? Doesn't it know Zach Wilson's going 2 to the Jets?
I mean, look, these things happen sometimes. I think there's a 98% chance it's Zach Wilson, but let's just stop right here. Justin Fields just went number 2 to the Jets, boys.
Kyle, the floor is yours.
I think when you talk about Justin Fields, he tied for my number 2 quarterback in this draft. The guy can make every throw to all levels of the field. There's a rumor that he only made 7 throws past his first progression. Well, anybody who says that is telling on themselves, because when you watch the guy play, that offense that Urban Meyer inspired the Ryan Day runs, they make progressions all the time, ton of option routes, and he's standing in the pocket waiting for things to develop. Fields is a phenomenal football player, and if Zach Wilson didn't make throws like Patrick Mahomes, I think he'd be the clear-cut number 2 guy in the NFL draft.
And so now San Francisco's probably sitting there thinking, "Wait, what? Wait a second. We haven't even watched any Zach Wilson film because it's just been Mac Jones. Everyone just thinks we're going to draft Mac Jones, and now this is weird." Okay, let's resume the draft. See what happens. San Francisco on the clock. They wow. Okay, they wind up taking Mac Jones number 3.
All right, Tyler. Give me the goods on Mac Jones. Is Mac Jones strikes me as the quarterback draft smokescreen. Oh, we love Mac Jones, yeah, and he's been sort of forced up. I'm not saying that he's not a first-round pick, okay? But I am saying I have serious reservations about him being a top 5 to 10 pick. How about you?
I have a reservation with him being a first-round pick. Yeah, he got a third-round grade from me. He's fine. He's not athletically impressive. He doesn't know how to drive the football. You watch some of his throws, and he's throwing out routes, and they're dropping like a couple yards before the wide receiver. He does throw a beautiful arcing deep ball, which gets people excited. But that Steve Sarkisian offense he ran at Alabama was incredibly friendly. Guys were wide open in space, and he's throwing to multiple first-round picks at receiver. Najee Harris in the backfield, great offensive line. It worries me that he doesn't have those dominant traits, which is why I wouldn't touch him in round 1.
It kind of feels like sometimes GMs and executives get tantalized by the deep ball and how big a guy's arm is, and those things are obviously important, but I need a guy who can do a lot of things within the first 15 yards and in the pocket and line of scrimmage, and so if big arm and down the field is like the number 1 or 2 reason that you're going to draft a quarterback, sometimes I think you should pump the brakes. Let's click play again here.
He strikes me as a top 10 pick in 1994.
Exactly.
That's what he's trying. And his body looks like me. Like, without a shirt on, he looks like me. It's like, dude, it's 2021. Get in shape.
All right, Judd, you're gonna have to take your shirt off and do the Tom Brady pose now.
No. We do not bring guests on this show to subject them to my gut. That's not fair. Tyler didn't do anything wrong.
Yes.
John's already got to see it.
All right, Kyle
doesn't say no.
Kyle Pitts.
No one sees it.
Wow. Judd just keeps a T-shirt on in the pool and around his own home. Okay, Kyle Pitts.
Damn right I do.
Going to Atlanta. Jamar Chase instead of Penei Sewell going to the Bengals at 5. Let's keep going here. Dolphins on the clock at 6, making their selection. Micah, this draft is weird. Okay, so Micah Parsons, linebacker, going to the Dolphins at 6, and then Penei Sewell going to the Lions at 7. So this is probably the weirdest sort of off-the-wall first 6 picks we've seen so far, with Zach Wilson still on the board and Micah Parsons going way higher than most mocks have him. Tyler.
Well, I'll tell you this about Micah Parsons. There is some off-field stuff, which I won't go into, but it's pretty easy to find with the Google search. But Micah Parsons fits exactly what Brian Flores wants to do. Incredibly hybrid-type player, can rush off the edge, can play outside linebacker like Kyle Van Noy, but he's probably best as a middle linebacker. That versatility in a hybrid-style defense is absolutely perfect for what Flores wants to do. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's on the board in the middle of the draft if they trade back up from 18 to go get him.
All right, let's
quickly, how good is Sewell in your mind? And is there does there come a time where he drops to a certain point where it might cost you quite a bit, but it would be smart of the Vikings to look at trading up? Because he strikes me as the one guy who, if you're Spielman, you might say to yourself, if we can get up to get him, it might be worth it.
I think Sewell's the second best player in this class. At 18 years old, he was dominating guys in the Pac-12. His movement skills for somebody who's 330 pounds are just astronomically good. One of the tough parts I have about trading up in this draft for an offensive tackle is it's loaded at offensive tackle. And you can get Christian Darrisaw at 14, or you can trade down and get a Tevin Jenkins or Samuel Cosme, and you can get a high-quality starting left tackle without giving up any draft capital. So if it was an average tackle draft, I would probably trade up in a heartbeat. But with the depth, it's really hard to sell me on that.
All right, let's keep going here. Let's keep our eye on, as we get to 8, 9, 10, 11, just the range that might make sense for the Vikings to trade up here if that's in the card. So Panthers on the clock here at 8, and they take Rashawn Slater. So a run on tackles here. Zach Wilson then goes 9 to the Broncos. I'm going to pause it again. We'll go a little faster once we get past the Vikings pick and then into the second, third rounds, etc. But so 4 quarterbacks off the board in the first 9 picks, and it's not shocking who the 4 quarterbacks are. The order in which they went is weird. Mm-hmm. But now I'd like to know here from Tyler is, if you're the Vikings, is there anyone between 10 and 14 that you would consider trading up for right now, where you're like, oh man, this guy's available? Could we sneak up a couple spots and get him?
See, I don't think they're going to do it, but I would probably trade up for Trey Lance. Or if you really just want to kind of ride out the Kirk Cousins wave, you go up and get Jalen Waddle. Waddle's my wide receiver 1, and people unfairly compare receivers to Tyreek Hill, but Jalen Waddle plays exactly like Tyreek Hill with the same kind of speed. He's a game changer for your offense. And imagine having Waddle just run deep down the field, and then all the space Thielen and Jefferson will have underneath. It would just be filthy.
Are you saying 3 deep? Is that what
3
you're
deep.
saying?
I love it, man.
Bring back the posters?
I love it.
I'm here
Give
for
me
it.
some more Jake Reed.
Yeah, Jake Reed was an underrated player, damn it.
By the way, Adam Thielen would be the Jake Reed in this instance in terms of
Yes,
he'd be the
Mm-hmm.
third best receiver of the 3. Adam Thielen probably more of a Chris. Well, no, he's faster than Chris Carter. Okay, so let's let this play out a couple picks here and just see. We're gonna go 2 more picks. I'm guessing Dallas takes Patrick Surtain. They do.
Yep.
Okay, the Giants take Jalen Waddle, and so now we've got Eagles on the clock at 12. We'll click play again. Trey Lance falling is interesting. Okay, J.C. Horn goes to the Eagles. The Chargers will not be taking Trey Lance here because they already have one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. And so we might as well just resume the draft and see what happens here, because the Vikings are going to have Trey Lance on the board at 14. All right. I don't know who just went at 13, so we're going to click out of this in a second. But we're getting multiple trade offers here. Make note of these, because we can just offer our own trades back if we want. The Jets are interested in going up the board here. We're going to decline that for a second. The Steelers are interested in going up the board from 24, and the Cardinals are interested in going up a couple of picks from 16. They're offering a 6th-round pick. We can re-offer trades to them or other teams if we want to, but we're on the clock here. Minnesota Vikings. Trey Lance is on the board. Darrisaw is off the board. So all 3 of the top tackles are off the board, unless Tyler sees the board a different way. The floor is yours, Tyler.
I actually have Rashawn Slater as an interior guy, but I see anybody who wants to play him in tackle. I totally get it. He manhandled Chase Young, and that's a pretty impressive feat for any offensive lineman. When you take a look at the board, there's a lot of depth, and there isn't that one guy that really stands out at the moment for, hey, I need to take this guy at 14, unless you're going to go Trey Lance. If you want to go quarterback here, you take it and run. He's my second best quarterback in this draft, and everything that you saw at North Dakota State was just impressive. The way he is able to run the offense from the line of scrimmage, making audibles, protection checks, shifting how he wants the offensive line to block. He's just an impressive young man on film. And I was at the Butler game at Target Field, and I remember he threw this one deep ball, dropped in a bucket in the first quarter, and I knew he was going to be special. And now he's going to be a top 15 pick. If you want to go quarterback, you take him and you don't even think twice. If you don't want to go quarterback and you believe in Kirk Cousins, or you're just going to have to ride out the Kirk Cousins wave, you trade and you get a haul because somebody's going to overpay to get Trey Lance.
So you'd be looking, if you're going to trade here, by the way, if the draft plays out this way for the Vikings, freaking pop the most expensive bottle of champagne, because you're either going to get a potential, and now there's a coin flip chance that Trey Lance would be a bust. Let's face it, there's a high volatility factor with any quarterback drafted, but there's like a 50% chance he's your quarterback of the future, and he can sit for a year behind Kirk Cousins. Otherwise, you've got the Patriots that would probably, you could dangle it in front of the Patriots and say, listen, we'd love a quarterback of the future. If you want to give us a couple of picks to move up one spot, we can make that happen. Washington at 19 would be a candidate here. And maybe even a couple other teams. Judd, where would you be at here? Are you just rushing to the phone to draft Trey Lance or what?
Personally, at 14, I would take Lance. But having covered the Vikings for a long time, I think they bail back. I think they 100% with where this team is at right now and people being under pressure to win. And this is, by the way, not the right call, but I think it would be their call, Tyler. I think the Vikings trade back at this point, to your point, too, to get a haul. And the fact is, there are still a lot of players, quality guys left. And if you go back into the 20s, I would not be surprised if the Vikings traded back, got a second-round pick, swapped first-round picks, went into the 20s, and took a defensive player. And it would not shock me at all if they took a defensive end there, because Kwity Paye at 14 is too high. But I think he's a first-round pick, and I think the Vikings could very much justify taking him at some point in the 20s.
So real quick here, before we're gonna poll the room as to what we would do if we were in this spot. But boy, this is a situation, if you're a business owner, where you're gonna want some protection and risk management. Okay, you're gonna want to make sure that you have Federated Mutual Insurance Company standing behind you, and they've been around for over 100 years, much longer than the Purple have been around, and they've been helping business owners for that whole time. You can find out how MyShield, the online client destination for risk management tools and risk management resources, can help you. Federatedinsurance.com, and remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. Declan, Trey Lance or trade back?
Trey Lance. I have to take Trey Lance. If the quarterback is there, I got to do this. I'm taking the best quarterback available. I'm finding an interior guard somewhere in the middle rounds. Like, I think I can do this. Give me Trey Lance and let's start. Let's go.
Judd, Trey or trade?
I take Trey. I take Trey here. They don't. I think it's very simple.
Tyler is already on the record saying you take Trey, right?
I take Trey, but I'm also with Judd. The Vikings won't, and they would trade back and get a haul. So if we want to do this, Sim, based on what we want to do or versus what we think the Vikings will do, that'll decide how we go with this pick.
Boys, I think we have this is a mutiny. We have overtaken the Vikings front office, and we are thinking about the long-term health of the quarterback position, the long-term health of the salary cap in 2022-23. I agree on Trey Lance. Sorry, Vikings. This is no longer what you would do. This is what the four of us are doing. Trey Lance, welcome home. Minnesota Vikings take Trey Lance with the 14th pick. All right, so we're going to let this thing play out now. Now, here's what I want you guys to look for, Tyler specifically. We've got, now that we're running this franchise, we've got a boatload of third and fourth round picks. As we get into the second round, if there are players worth trading up for, shout it out. Like if Christian Barmore is still sitting there as we get into like pick 35, 40, we can offer trades. So I think going forward here, now it's sort of about, all right, fill some other needs, obviously, make Mike Zimmer happy. Maybe there's an edge rusher in there, an offensive lineman. But if you make this Trey Lance pick, what now?
I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. You can get a starting caliber offensive tackle in round 3 in this draft, which is remarkable, how deep it is. There are quite a few day 2 edge guys that I really like, and you can get a wide receiver 3 in like round 5. And the nice part about the Vikings wide receiver room is you can kind of get whatever type of receiver you want and just plug and play, because Thielen and Jefferson are so diverse in the roles that they can play on the offensive side. And this draft is really deep from about 20 to 70. There's a lot of glut guys. There isn't a super amount of high-end talent, especially in the defensive side of the ball. But you can get a lot of depth pieces that are going to be really good players on day 2.
Odds that Trey Lance falls.
I think if he doesn't go at 3,
yep.
If the Falcons don't take him at 4 and they go Kyle Pitts, I think there's a chance that Lance could be available at pick 8, pick 9. And I don't think it's that crazy. But that also means Mac Jones has to go 3. And I still don't buy it. I don't understand why you would take Mac Jones over any of these top 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna. So I just went through here. Rashad Bateman, by the way, went to the Bears at 20. For people that are wondering, and the Packers took Northwestern cornerback Greg Newsome II, which may or may not make Aaron Rodgers happy. I don't know. So we're at pick 35 with the Falcons in the second round, and we're going to continue forward here. So this is a 4-round simulation. It would be, I think the Vikings are going to look to trade back into the second round because they just have, they have so many picks in those middle rounds. If they see somebody of value, I think it makes sense. But Tyler, do you think there's anyone as we approach here? You can sort of see who's available, and I'll scroll down a little bit too as we get into like the late 40s and the 50s. You got a couple running backs on the board. I don't know that the Vikings are going to trade up for either one of those guys. You got some edge rushers in the mix here, and Greg Rousseau from Miami.
What about Brady Christensen? Is he someone that you could possibly trade up to get in the mid-second round there, Tyler?
Absolutely. Here's the interesting thing about Brady Christensen. He's 24. He went to BYU. He did a 2-year Mormon mission. So he doesn't have 2 extra years of football, like wear and tear on his body. But when you talk about contracts, it's really tough because you're drafting a guy who you're going to sign to his second contract at 28, 29 years old, and then he's never probably getting a third contract. So that's something that you have to really think about. The guy I really wanted to target was Peyton Turner from Houston, but he just went at 47 to the Chargers.
Okay.
He's got vines for arms, and he can play. He can play,
baby.
He played 3 technique for 2 years. He sees himself best as an outside linebacker. Peyton Turner is my favorite prospect in this class, and he has a motor that runs hotter than anything I've ever seen.
Play the sound. Play the sounder.
Yeah.
Play the football sounder.
Tyler.
Football, wow.
You got the motor going and the swim moves. No one can stop you, Tyler. That's the key to life.
When you take a look at this edge group that you have pulled up here, I don't like Rousseau. Most of his pressures and sacks came on either unblocked plays or, hey, the quarterback's going to hold the ball for 8 seconds and I'm just going to eventually win. He doesn't have any pass rush moves. He doesn't have a plan. If a defensive or offensive lineman blocks him, he has no counters. He's just kind of there. And his testing was not good. So where you'd have to draft him, I'm 100% out on Gregory Rousseau.
So these are the edge rushers here. I'm also going to go, if I can scroll down here. I don't know if I can. I want to see what offensive linemen were available here too, because that obviously is still a huge need for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
But like Wyatt Davis, Ohio State on the board. Thoughts on him?
He's fine. He's a good player. His 2019 was a lot better than his 2020. 2020, he ended up on the ground a lot. He's the kind of guy, he's not great at anything, but he's not bad at anything. He's just an overall solid player. I don't think he's the kind of guy you want to trade up for. The offensive lineman I would trade up for is Creed Humphrey.
Ooh.
So Kentley Platt at MathBomb on Twitter, he compiles what's called the relative athletic score, where he takes all the athletic testing from every player since 1987 and compiles it and determines who the best overall athlete is. Creed Humphrey at 6'6", 325 is the best center ever with athletic testing.
Wow.
He can play guard. He's got 4 years of excellent tape at Oklahoma. He is number 12 on my board. I love Creed Humphrey's game.
Okay, run blocking we're, and pass pro?
Yes.
Both?
So
because
real
the pass
quick
pro
here,
is important here.
We're halfway through the second round, and this is, listen, we have kicked Rick Spielman out of here. We've kicked Mike Zimmer out of here. We are now manning the ship. All right, yep. So let's just see for fun. The Raiders are on the clock. Let's offer them a trade here. Let's see what the Raiders would want for us to move up and draft Creed Humphrey, okay? So we would obviously be getting their 48th pick. Tyler, what do you think here? If we offer up, and it'll tell us at the bottom of the screen here how likely or not they are to accept the trade. So if we gave them the 78th.
I would try 78 and 119 and see where that gets you.
Okay, it says very unlikely.
Throw in 157.
Okay.
A 3, 4, and a 5.
Still says
not like
very unlikely.
It is moving up 30 spots. I just don't want to give up 2 third-round picks to go all the way up to 48. That's the tough part.
Yeah.
Probably
All
the
right,
key to getting the trade done.
Let's see what happens. Let's resume
All right.
for a couple of picks and see what happens. All right. So the Raiders on the clock right now. Okay, Creed Humphrey just went there to the Cardinals. So the
There
dream
are
is dead.
still good guards that you can get in round 3. One guy I really like is David Moore out of Grambling. He's 6'1.5", 335, and
Ooh.
he just buries guys in the football field. And Judd, he's good in pass pro.
There you go.
Yeah, see, this is all I want now. Good in pass. I'm tired of run blockers who get blown off the ball in pass pro.
All right, we're sitting here and
Oh, the
we're
Bills.
almost to the end of the second round. The Buffalo Bills are looking to trade back here. So they've called us and they have said, hey, do you want to move up to 61? We'll give you 61 and 93 and take your third round pick.
My vision's not good enough to see that.
Scroll down. What else are we giving him?
Oh, there we go. That makes sense. And then the Vikings also have to give up an additional third and an additional 6th round pick. So the trade
That's
would
worth
be
it.
we're going to click
It
accept
is?
on that and
Okay.
move up to 61. All right.
So
Well,
we give up our 2 third-round picks. We essentially move up in to round 2. So we move up 17 spots to move back 3 spots in round 3, and then give up a 6. That's an easy win.
And so Brady Christensen, so these are just best players available according to the Draft Network right now. A couple of linebackers and Nick Bolton, Jabril Cox, Brady Christensen, the tackle from BYU. Anybody else here standing out to you? Quinn Miniers?
Quinn Miners. So when you take a look at this group, it's do you want to get your left tackle or do you want to get a dominant guard? Quinn Miners tested athletically fantastic. He only played D3 Wisconsin Whitewater, but when you watch the Senior Bowl, everything you saw in film translated against equal competition too. He's a really good player, and he needs to tighten up his technique a little bit. He overextends and lunges at times, but he's good in pass pro. But Brady Christensen was PFF's #1 rated tackle in the 2020 college football season. He wasn't playing superior competition, but he did play well against Peyton Turner, who I talked about earlier. I think it's really a debate. Do you want to take the 24-year-old tackle, or do you want to take the 22-year-old guard and try and get a tackle at 90?
Can he play guard? Can Christensen play guard as well, or is he only a tackle?
I think he's only a tackle. You could move him inside like Ezra Cleveland, but I don't think that's where he is going to be most successful.
I mean, I listen, if we love ourselves some PFF here, if this helps solve the Vikings offensive line conundrum by bringing in a guy who can play tackle for the next 5 to 8 years, I'm in on Brady Christensen. So, Tyler, if you're ready for it, we'll pull the trigger here on Brady Christensen.
Pull the trigger.
Let's do
There
it.
we go. All right, Vikings have picked up a franchise quarterback of the future that won't be used until 2022, and Brady Christensen.
Zimmer just quit.
Would Christensen
Like Zimmer just walked out.
if Christensen was ready to play in week 1, would you have him at left or right tackle to start the season?
I think it really depends what you're playing with Brian O'Neill is. We all know that he played left tackle at Pitt, but right tackle money is a lot different from left tackle money. And you could, in theory, save about $5 to $6 million as far as market value is concerned by keeping O'Neill at right tackle. As far as getting your best starting 5, I would probably put O'Neill at left tackle. I think Christensen can be successful there, but when you're talking about a team that needs to win now, you want to have your best player at the left tackle spot, and that would be Brian O'Neill.
Yeah. So just to update the audience here, we're into the early 80s here, so we're still in the middle of round 3. The next pick for the Vikings is pick 93. I'm sure we're going to get some phone calls here. If you see anybody on the board, like right now, for instance, let me just pause this real quick, okay? So the Vikings are 6 picks away from making their next pick here, and the Steelers are on the clock at 87. So according to the Draft Network value board here, is it, can you pronounce this interior defensive lineman from Ohio State named Tommy, is it Tugai?
Tungiai.
Tungiai?
Yeah.
And then, of course, and then you have Josh Myers, who is an interior offensive lineman for Ohio State. And I think we picked him in your simulation that I was on climbing the pocket a couple weeks back. So your thoughts on those two Ohio State meat and potatoes linemen?
Tungiai is going to be a guy who's who's more of a like one gapper kind of player. I don't think he necessarily fits long term for what this team wants to do. If you're going to draft an interior guy, it needs to be that penetrator, needs to be that 3 technique style, and I don't think he fits. Josh Myers, I don't necessarily think is a perfect fit either. Kind of looking at the board, I saw Spencer Brown was still available, the tackle out of Northern Iowa. And that was kind of my fear, is if we didn't get minors, then we'd still have a guy like Brown who tested athletically off the charts. He is, according to the Relative Athletic Score, the most athletic tackle since 1987.
Wow.
So the Vikings will be in on Spencer Brown in the middle rounds if they don't take one early. So I don't think there's anybody here that I would desperately want to trade up for. Kind of looking at the board, there are some good players, but I don't want to give up extra capital to go take one.
Sure. So we'll resume it here. We'll let these 6 picks roll off the board and see how it falls to the Vikings. The Packers picking right in front of the Vikings here at 92.
Yeah.
And the Browns have a couple of picks. So Josh Myers goes to the Rams, and Cleveland making its selection in Ben Cleveland from Georgia. And then the Packers taking, there we go, Stone Forsythe from Florida, offensive tackle. Vikings on the clock.
So if the board were to fall like this, and the Vikings just took, I guess somewhat surprisingly, a quarterback in the first round and an offensive tackle in with their next pick, I gotta think that at the insistence of my head coach, the next pick, defense probably, right? And defensive end.
I'm taking a look at edge rushers right here.
Yeah, he's been jonesing since free agency started, and you struck out for that. So he basically is now saying, if we don't take a guy that can rush off the right edge here, I do quit, I would guess. So this has to be that, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. So at 93, this is kind of a worst-case scenario. The board is not very friendly as far as edge rushers are concerned. Quincy Roche is a great speed rusher, but he is not going to fit that 4-3 mold that Zimmer likes, where his pass rushers are more like 260. They can set the edge, play the run really well. I'd say, looking at what we've got, the two that really stand out are Jordan Smith from UAB and Ellerson Smith from Northern Iowa. Ellerson Smith, the Minneapolis kid, he's got a lot of tools, but he needs a lot of work. He's got long arms. He's like 6'5", 265. Jordan Smith is a very similar build. One thing about him that you'd have to vet in meetings is he was a part of that University of Florida credit card scandal in 2017. He was one of 9 kids that were involved in that. So you'd have to make sure that you're comfortable there.
Oh, so he's an entrepreneur. He's a business person, you might say. All right.
Yes.
Don't leave home without it.
He has interests outside of football. Big red flag.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Can you scroll down a little bit, see who else might be available on the edge?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Dayo Odiingbo, he's an interesting guy. He would be a top 50 pick, but he tore his Achilles a week before the Senior Bowl.
Oof.
So if he's available in round 4, that's somebody I would want to take. Cameron Sample is a hybrid guy. I know Doogie tweeted about him yesterday. He does not have the height and length that the Vikings look for, but he's 268. He can play inside and outside as far as pass rush downs, and he's got a motor. He came into the Senior Bowl as an injury replacement and really kind of took over as far as the defensive linemen were concerned. I like him at this spot, but with what the Vikings like to do, and we're prioritizing high upside pass rushers, I'm going with Jordan Smith from UAB. He was a 4-star recruit. He got recruited by the University of Florida and went there. He's a high upside athlete. He's got length. Give him to Andre Patterson. Let's see if he can make some more magic.
Let's do it. I mean, the Vikings have had a lot of success. I mean, Daniil Hunter was a 3rd-round pick, if I remember right. Everson Griffin was a mid-round pick with off-the-field issues, and they have developed. So Jordan Smith is our pick here, running the Vikings front office as we get closer to pick 100 here. So to this point, to recap, what a draft so far. So the first pick, Trey Lance, falls to 14. Vikings pull the trigger. Brady Christensen, the tackle from BYU, and then Jordan Smith, edge rusher from UAB. On the Trey Lance thing, just to go back there for a second, I'm sure they're planning for all these scenarios, but I would love to be a fly on the wall for what Mike Zimmer's thoughts would be on it. I think Rick Spielman comes at it from a practical perspective and a cap perspective, thinking, I mean, come on. You know, Kirk Cousins is the 3rd highest paid quarterback in the league to the cap this year. He's going to be second, only behind Matt Ryan next year. So it's just an elephant in the room contract. He's a good player, but it's preventing us from building out a great roster. So let's get out from underneath that. Mike Zimmer's probably thinking, well, if we're only going to have one pick in the first 70-odd picks, and this will pause automatically when it gets to the Vikings at 119 here, so we're good. We're on the clock again here. Mike Zimmer is probably thinking, well, if we don't use that resource on something that can help me in 2021, then I'm going to get fired. So the dynamic in the room would be so interesting. What do you guys think?
Tyler, go ahead.
No, 100%. I think these guys, I think, are trying to save their jobs to a point. Obviously, we've heard that the Wolves kind of want sustained success and they don't want to have a lot of turnover. But if you would go into this year and you start 1-5 again, I just don't see how you can justify keeping at least Zimmer around. Spielman, you can probably make the same case that he needs to go too. But if you are going to turn over your head coach, your GM, and your quarterback, realistically, you're going to hit 1 out of the 3, maybe 2 if you're lucky. So you got to be really careful when you do a full turnover if that ends up being the case. It's tough because you got to plan for the future, but you got to plan for now. If Lance is sitting there and Cousins starts to stink, you throw him in there and you just see what happens, and maybe he can be that spark.
And the problem, in my opinion, as well, and this is a detriment about Cousins, is if Cousins starts to struggle and fans and media start to call for Lance, which they inevitably would do if Kirk gets off to a bad start, which, by the way, Kirk gets off to bad starts. That would not be breaking news. Is Kirk, how he's wired mentally, I don't think would handle it well. Like, I don't know that would help him thrive. I mean, the Vikings, since the day that they signed Kirk, have purposely gone out and gotten backup QBs like Mannion. Why? Because he's zero threat, right? Mm-hmm. So the problem here is theoretically, if you got Trey Lance, that should help Kirk. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show you. I don't know that it does. That's where the Vikings are a very convoluted, tough team to try and figure out because there's a lot of moving parts here. But I go back to what you said, which is this. I really think, just from trying to put the tea leaves together, that this team is invested in trying to win right now, which is why I do believe that first-round pick is going to be a guy, right or wrong, that the Vikings perceive to be an impact guy for 2021 that's going to help Zimmer, Spielman, Cousins, etc., as opposed to, oh my God, this quarterback fell to us, it might be a good idea to take this guy because if he develops, it solves a problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just to reset here, so Vikings on the clock at 119, and then we also have pick 125. What positions are you interested in here, boys? I mean, cornerback is always in the mix, especially with what happened with Jeff Gladney off the field. Robert Rochelle from Central Arkansas. Who are some names that you think we should be looking at here with the next couple of picks, Tyler?
Let's talk about Kendrick Green, the interior offensive lineman from Illinois. The fact that he's still on the board right now is really, really good for the Vikings. He is the prototype interior offensive lineman that the Vikings look for. But unlike most of the Vikings offensive linemen that they end up getting, he's actually a pretty strong and violent player on the inside, and he's a hyper athlete. So you can plug him in at left guard, and he can also play center. So if Garrett Bradbury ends up flaming out and he's just not a playable player anymore, you can put him in at center. And I think Kendrick Green's probably going to go round 3. He's going to be a target for zone blocking schemes.
Let's do it. I'm in. Any objections to that profile of an offensive lineman?
No, are you kidding? Offensive line?
No. We're running to the draft board. All right, so Kendrick Green is the pick at 119. A few more picks coming off the board right now, including the Patriots drafting quarterback Jamie Newman from Georgia with their latest pick, and the Vikings back on the clock at 125. Let's scroll through the options here. A lot of edge
cornerback might be a play.
Jacoby Stevens, a safety from LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Zimmer always looking for safeties of the future.
Yeah.
And, there's Sean Wade, Ohio State, is a cornerback that's available right now. Trey Brown and Radarius Williams, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, available. And then Keith Taylor Jr., also available. Mm-hmm. Wide receivers, I wouldn't rule wide receivers out in this draft either for the Vikings.
No, I wouldn't rule out wide receiver either. And one of the interesting parts about kind of the middle round guys, there's a buffet of options. You can really take that somebody who does just about anything. Guy in the mid rounds to watch for is Anthony Schwartz, Auburn receiver, has Olympic sprinter type speed. I think he ran the 100 meters in like 10.1 seconds. Incredibly misused at Auburn because his quarterback Bo Nix is really, really bad. Like,
can he catch the ball?
He can catch the ball.
Us.
Yes.
He can catch the ball. He does not have vision issues, Judge.
Troy Williamson. He's not going to the Nike camp.
Let's do it here. Let's take. I love it. Let's take, and for time purposes too here, we'll take Anthony Schwartz with pick 125, and then we have pick 134 coming up as well. So to this point, we have Trey Lance, quarterback, Brady Christensen, offensive tackle from BYU, trading up into the second round, Jordan Smith, edge rusher, Kendrick Green, interior offensive line, and Anthony Schwartz, burner receiver. And that brings us to pick 134. You're
going defensive back here, right?
I want to take a look at the board because when you're talking round 4, this is where you can really take advantage of guys who fall. And when I take a look at the board, you've got Deo, who we talked about. He's got high upside, but he has that Achilles tear that he's relatively fresh. Two of my favorite players in the class, Kyle and Hill, Deontay Smith, are both still available. Smith is a guy you could draft, and he could be your 6th offensive lineman right away. He can play both tackle spots. He can move inside and play both guard spots. And I love the kid. Patrick Jones, he's weird because he's tall, he's long, and he's got some juice, but he's just not a good football player. David Moore, as I was talking about earlier, has that really fun body type and just throws people around like he's in a professional wrestling ring.
Love it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in.
Ade Takumbo.
I'm in.
All in.
David Moore.
David
Get
Moore.
another big boy.
Make it happen.
All right,
let's go here. David Moore, the interior offensive lineman from Grambling, is our pick at 134. And then we'll wait to see here toward the end of this 4th round, pick 143. I think if Achilles tendon guy is still on the board here, we might as well take a flyer on Deo here.
4th round is kind of a weird place in the draft.
There he just went to the Steelers. 3 picks in front of us.
So 4th round, you're taking one of 3 types of players. You're taking high production, limited athletic upside, high athletic upside, limited production, or big time red flag, whether it be injury, off field. And I mean, that's how the Vikings end up getting Ray Edwards back in the mid 2000s. And then they were able to pair him with Jared Allen for the 2009 run. And you're able to find kind of diamonds in the rough there.
And so this is it. Pick 143. Tyler, you're scouring these players here and positions of need. I still think, I agree. I don't think you're hyper-focused on positions as much. It's probably more on the things you just mentioned. But cornerback and safety are definitely going to be addressed from a depth standpoint at some point. So does anyone pop out here? Keith Taylor Jr., Ambry Thomas, James Wiggins.
I like James Wiggins quite a bit. Safety out of Cincinnati. Tore his ACL in 2019, but he's got that really elite aesthetic. Like you remember watching college football in the mid 90s, they got that back pad just flapping around.
Oh, I love the back pad.
I love the back pad.
Oh, talk to me about the back pad. Yes. Football! Neck rolls, back pads.
Yeah. So Wiggins is a really, really good athlete. He runs downhill and he's aggressive. Needs some work in technique, but he can be afforded the time to learn with Xavier Woods and Harrison Smith. And with Harrison Smith really transitioning into his career where his athleticism, which wasn't never his strongest suit, is going to start to even taper down more. You can put James Wiggins on the back end and then let Harrison Smith play that riverboat gambler like he loves to do.
Let's do it. All right, James Wiggins, come on down. Mike Zimmer making him happy here in the middle rounds, and the Chiefs will finalize the 4th round. So our 4-round mock simulation here, This is just a summary again. Trey Lance, quarterback, North Dakota State with the 14th pick, trading back up into the second round to get Brady Christensen, tackle from BYU, offensive tackle. Jordan Smith, edge rusher, UAB with the 93rd pick. Kendrick Green, interior offensive line from Illinois. Anthony Schwartz, burner wide receiver from Auburn. David Moore, interior offensive line from Grambling. And James Wiggins, a safety from Cincinnati. So 3 offensive linemen in the first, let's see here, 6 picks for the Vikings and a quarterback of the future. I would not complain if this is how the draft played out. Your guys' quick thoughts. We'll start with Judd.
The quarterback won't be taken, but I love this. Yeah. I love the thought of the Vikings maybe even sacrificing the short term for the long-term gain of possibly solving a problem in this town that has been a problem essentially since Tarkington left after the 1978 season. I think the fan base would be very excited to at least feel that they had a QB of the future. Unfortunately, as I said before, the problem is this. I think your current starting QB would melt down completely in every way, shape, and form if Trey Lance got taken. But personally, I like this draft.
Dex, what about you?
I love the idea of this draft. So you find your future quarterback in the first round pick. You're not wasting significant draft capital on offensive linemen. You're still walking with multiple offensive linemen in the first, 3 rounds of this draft? Or 4 rounds or whatever. That is a win. So, I think this would be, to me, I'm giving this an A-plus draft. I think this would be my dream scenario if this takes place next week.
No, it's no such thing as A-pluses.
Wow, it's Declan going A-plus here.
This life, no A-pluses.
And Tyler, your final thoughts on this draft through 4 rounds.
Look, I really like this draft. I'm with Judd. I don't think it's realistic in the fact that I just don't see the Vikings taking a quarterback in round 1. But if they do, and getting Lance, I think is an absolute home run. My brand of guards don't matter is thriving, taking guys on day 2 and day 3. Because you just need average to above average players and don't need to spend high capital on them. I think we accomplished that. Brady Christensen can play day 1, and you can decide how you want to maneuver with him and Brian O'Neill. Jordan Smith, high upside pass rusher. That's still a bigger weakness than I would like, but you can manufacture pressure, and especially with the defense going to be fully healthy in theory this year. And then you just got brand guys for me. David Moore, I absolutely love. And he's going to win people over just with his physicality on the inside. Anthony Schwartz is fun. And if the Vikings can figure out how to use him, he can do what Jalen Waddle can and really stretch the defense vertically. And he can be like the discount version of 3 deep.
Love it. Love it. Give me some discount awesome. 3 deep, baby.
I want a mock.
There it is, boys. This mock draft sim, 4 rounds, presented also in part by our friends at Wamatech. They can't help you with your broken down left side of the offensive line, but they can help you with your broken down phone, tablet, or laptop. Wamatech is a trusted supplier of pre-owned phones, tablets, laptops. They source their own devices directly and pass the savings on to you guys. And every device they sell is tech certified and comes with a warranty. Buy, sell, trade in, whatever you need. Wamatech.com, local company, WAMATEK.com. I need a smoke and a pancake after that. That was great. Tyler, thanks for coming on. Tell people who are watching here on Purple Daily where they can find your work as part of the Climbing the Pocket Network.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealForno. I have been releasing videos every day, and one just released about 10 minutes ago breaking down my top 5 edge rushers in this class. You can also find me doing some YouTube stuff for Blue Chip Scouting. And I know you're a wrestling fan, so I also write for Voices of Wrestling as well on occasion. Yeah. And
oh my God.
Come find me on Twitter. I love discussing with people who aren't jackasses.
Oh, love it. All right. We'll get Tyler
awesome
on again
stuff.
At some point.
Thank you.
And we love that he raised the knowledge level of this show big time today. And thanks to everyone who has hung out with us on a daily basis leading up to this draft. Daily Vikings entertainment here on Purple Daily. Mackie and Judd, executive producer Declan Goff. We'll see you guys tomorrow.